I don't throw darts at a board. I bet on sure things. Read Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Every battle is won before it's ever fought. Think about it. The most valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
A, B, C. A, always B, B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing. The show goes on!
It's Wednesday night and fantasy football is on the agenda. Grab a seat and let's get down to business. It's time for the Fantasy Boardroom. Here's your host, Tycoon.
And welcome! Happy holidays and Merry Christmas. We are here. We are in the final four of the fantasy playoffs, and oh boy, what a time to be alive. Not necessarily a good time. Now, if you're in the final four, you're probably feeling okay. Maybe not. I'm not. This is the worst. Week 15, and credit Michael Fabiano. If you don't know who he is, look him up. Said this as I was driving on the way home, and I think he's absolutely correct. And that is week 15 of the 2021 season is the single worst week in fantasy football of all time. Without doubt. Just the, again, continued injuries, COVID protocols keeping players out, and just overall horrific play from so many critical players that were deployed in the fantasy playoffs. This is the biggest disaster in the history of fantasy, no doubt about it. So actually, it's just, honestly, it's gotten to the point, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more, there is just more and more addition to the league's COVID list. And I write a weekly start and sits article with my co-founder over at the Fantasy Collective One, Shane Barrett. Make sure you're checking that out, except for this week, because we decided not to do it. You know why? Because we write that, it publishes Thursday mornings. That is just has such a high likelihood of not being relevant come Sunday morning. You're not making start decisions right now. You're simply not. And to be quite frank, after week 15, I'm not sure whatever decisions you make really matter. You have the guys you have, and you just got to hope for the best, because nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense right now. Even for the players that are still playing, having this issue run through the league, it causes chaos, it causes disturbance. Teams are not themselves. Things are not going to go as we expect them to go. And I don't think that's going to end anytime soon. Certainly not over the next 2 weeks. So, gotta be real honest in saying that, we're all still going to sit here and try to predict and make our best guesses. Obviously, we still need to set lineups, but it's going to really... And I hate doing this because while I always acknowledge that it plays a part, I still think skill is critical, but it's going to be so much luck at this point to win. Your guys staying healthy, both in terms of COVID and in terms of injury. And on top of that, actually still performing. Is the rest of the team still in a position to help that player succeed in a fantasy setting? What does the opponent's team look like? What other things around the league are going to give new opportunity to unknowns or unexpecteds that nobody's going to have the balls to drop into their lineup here in the semifinals or the finals? It is really something else. This is the worst fantasy season, and not even results-wise. I've had worse by results of my teams, by far, but this has been one of the least fun fantasy seasons ever. And that really is just because of the situations that we do find ourselves in with injuries and COVID. It's so so aggravating that seemingly every single time you get a notification from your preferred fantasy app or sports news app or what have you that, oh, player X is injured. Oh, player Y has COVID. Oh, player Z was just a close contact, and not knowing in a lot of cases what the chances are for these players to come back. There's so much ambiguity. It's so vague. We know the vaccination status of many. It's more important in the sense that we know who isn't, like Mr. Cole Beasley, that he's obviously going to be out the upcoming game no matter what, because he has to miss 10 days as an unvaccinated player. So it's relevant. And the fact that all of this is such a significant part of what we're doing here in the final weeks is just deflating. It's really deflating. I'm actually kind of glad that I didn't have the boardroom meeting last week. I'm not sure we would have accomplished much. Why? Because we also happened week 15. A huge chunk of what I thought was going to happen or was likely to happen is not even close to what happened. And that kind of goes for most. I wasn't really straying from consensus much last week. We're pretty late in the season. We've got a pretty good idea of how teams and players are doing, those of us that are paying attention. And, the NFL, I mean, it is any given Sunday, as we always know, but just the pure randomness of this sport, of this game, of this league is unreal sometimes. It really, really is. And I feel like I'm kind of talking in circles here, but it is what it is. And it just fucking sucks. But we do still have a championship to try to win. We still have to give it our best effort. What I will say in terms of, I'm going to roll through some things here, in certain games and touch on some certain topics, but I think the most important thing as you're setting your lineups this week is to be paying very, very close attention to the news of your team and of other teams, of all teams. You need to be aware of who is and isn't going to play. That's most important. And there are going to be players on, say, the defense of your opponent. Let's say you're rostering whatever Arizona Cardinal, and we find out Kenny Moore is out this week for the Colts cornerback. Well, if you have one of those receivers, I mean, you're probably already going to fire him up, but still going to, or you might look at additional opportunities for even deeper players. Maybe Rondale Moore has some extra opportunity now. I mean, or whatever it may be. But make sure you're paying very, very close attention to who is in and out on both sides of the ball for every team in the league, and make sure you're checking to see how that is going to affect who you have that is available to play. And don't miss the news, especially on your own players, so you don't have an inactive person in there come Saturday, not even Sunday. Hell, even tomorrow. Pay close attention. I mean, anything can happen. Every morning, we're seeing it. I believe there were 51 players that were added on Monday to the league's COVID list. Yes, 51. And on Tuesday, there were 21. I'm not even sure how many today. Just go through the league, there's only a couple of teams that are clean. Otherwise, some teams have it running rampant. Some teams a little less so. I mean, look at Houston, you look at Kansas City, you look at the New York Jets, the Chargers, they have so many players out. Cleveland just rocked. The Bears, the Ravens. There's no understating how important this is and how much this is going to affect your teams. So with that, though, we'll jump into some games. Let's actually talk about what we need to prepare for. And a very, very significant matchup to myself is that of the 49ers and Tennessee Titans tomorrow night in Tennessee. The Niners are hot, 1-5-6. The Titans are a Jekyll and Hyde team, to be frank. And obviously, I love my Niners' chances to go in and take this game. from a fantasy perspective, two very important notes. One, we don't know yet, so pay attention. Again, something else we don't know. A.J. Brown is likely to return tomorrow, and if he is, you absolutely play him. If Arthur Juan Brown is active in an NFL football game, you play him, no questions asked, always, every time. Adding an actual legitimate little level of analysis to that is he's the most important part of their passing attack that has been lacking recently. And Julio Jones, while he... Julio Jones, man, exited early on Sunday, but practiced in full today. So I don't know what's going on with this hamstring, but I feel like it's very tough to count on Julio getting through an entire game right now. So I certainly wouldn't, and would say expect Brown, if active, to get a healthy dose of targets, no matter what. It's just what will happen. What he does with them, who knows, but he is going to get his opportunities if he's in the ball. Now, on the 49ers side of the ball, Eli Mitchell is again going to be out with his knee issue. So disappointing what was lining up to be a wonderful fantasy playoff schedule for Mitchell. I was going to miss the first 2 weeks of the fantasy playoffs at a minimum. Shoot. So, probably still fire up Jeff Wilson, but most importantly, you're going to play Debo Kittle, and that's what matters. Normally, I would go into a little bit of props, but I'm not going to get too heavy into that tonight. Little sneak peek that is going to be a much heavier focus on this show are player props. We'll be talking prize picks. I'll mix in some straight betting, probably more prize picks again, as we are partners with them over at the Fantasy Collective. And straight betting, I live in California, is still not legal, regular sports betting. So can only give that so much attention just because I can't actively do it myself. But with that said, still spot a lot of things that I love standalone. Prize picks, while wonderful, can be frustrating because of the parlay-only feature, but that is not Prize Picks' fault. That is your local legislature's fault for not giving you the additional option to straight bet and then play your parlays through Prize Picks, because you can get better odds on a lot of combinations going through Prize Picks than you can, say, building parlays in a book. There's a lot of variables there, depending on what the bets are, but you have potentially higher payouts on the same bets in a lot of cases using Prize Picks. So for that, but California, get your shit together, legalize sports betting. Let's go. So yeah, we'll be talking about props and betting. That'll be again a focus more moving forward. But tonight, we're just trying to get through these playoffs, man. That's really we want to do Browns and Packers. There is again so much up in the air right now in terms of who is and isn't going to be available to play. As of right now, Cleveland still does not have... Is Baker Mayfield still on the list? I believe he is. I know Case Keenum is. Yeah, Baker Mayfield, Case Keenum still on the list. Jarvis Landry still on the list. Jadeveon Clowney, Greg Newsome, Ronnie Harrison, Grant Delpit, Malik McDowell, John Johnson, and Jedrick Wills. I mean, the list goes on. So Packers are probably just going to go in and crush them. But it's a blowout happened. Some of these guys get pulled early because they just destroy this JV squad that the Browns are likely to throw out there. It's very tough from that kind of perspective to see what's going to happen. I mean, the Packers play with one of the slowest paces in the league. Maybe they just make it an A.J. Dillon game, in the cold Green Bay environment. Play all your Packers. That's all I can say. Colts and Cardinals is the other Saturday matchup that we get. That will be at 5:15 Pacific. Our little evening game, Colts and Cardinals. So they will be in Arizona. Obviously, you're going to fire up Jonathan Taylor. The Cardinals are struggling because Cliff Kingsbury stinks. That will be my stance forever. He will not win anything. So don't count on the Cardinals in the playoffs. This was predictable. And the Colts are kind of playing really well. I like the Colts in this game, but again, that depends on who is actually going to be in it. Arizona, thankfully, is not too affected uh, when it comes to the coronavirus, nor the Colts. They're missing Rock Yassin, and Kimoko Toure. I'm not sure. I don't know much about Toure, defensive end. I need to check and see how much he really gets used. Not a name I'm familiar with, but Rock Yassin is not a very good cornerback, so that's might be addition by subtraction. Nah, but really, this game probably you can take a look at a little more regularly, as these teams haven't had too much affect them in the way of coronavirus yet, and hopefully not at all. So yeah, you're gonna fire up Jonathan Taylor. They've been really relying more and more on the run game recently, largely due to matchups. It's really only made sense to run the ball recently against teams like Buffalo, New England. The Cardinals, on the other hand, yeah, struggling. Indianapolis's weakness is their secondary, but Hopkins is out, so another bad injury out for the rest of the regular season. I mean, AJ Green and Christian Kirk are definitely going to have their opportunities. I'd actually really be comfortable firing up both of them at home. Indy secondary will get beat to a certain degree, so you can fire those guys up, but I'm not really thrilled about Murray as a whole. Connor is hurt. We'll see if he plays. Just another star going down. So if he plays, I don't think he's going to. Then you got to go with Edmonds, but how is Edmonds going to do? This is only his second game back. And against a tough run defense. As bad as the Colts secondary is, their run defense is rather strong. So give me the Colts in this game, but again, how the game script is going to go and what's going to happen fantasy-wise, prop-wise, that's one I'm really rather trying to stay away from. I also want to point out I am drinking this delicious Celebration Fresh Hop IPA from Sierra Nevada Brewing. It is the celebration season. The nice red can kind of complements the red shirt well. It's holiday time, particularly Christmas time with that in 3 days. Fun stuff. Giants-Eagles, not going to spend much time on that. All I can say is if Jalen Hurts is starting, which no reason he shouldn't be between now and then, you're going to play Jalen Hurts, you're going to play Miles Sanders, and enjoy that. That's going to be not a fun game. The Eagles, though, surprisingly in playoff contention. Expect them to go to 8-7 following this game. But any game involving the Giants just sucks to watch, and I advise you to avoid it if you can. Rams and Vikings, though. This is one I think is going to be a higher scoring game. One of the higher scoring games of the week. Rams are going to have no trouble scoring on the Vikings. You can take that to the bank. Stafford, great day. Michelle, great day. Kupp, Jefferson, Beckham, probably all good to great. Obviously, Kupp, great days. We'll see who has the better day between Beckham and Jefferson, but both will be viable. The Vikings, I think Kirk's going to bounce back from, I don't even know what that was against the Bears. But they're not going to be able to run Dalvin Cook up the middle repeatedly here against the Rams and have any chance at success. While the Rams' defense is good, Kirk is good enough to put up some yards, put up some points on them. And I think that's exactly what will happen. Some of it might come in garbage time there at the end, but ultimately for fantasy and likely for the overs on your prop bets for Vikings players, it's going to hit. So I'd feel comfortable playing all notable fantasy assets in this game. Again, short of very unexpected injury or COVID news. Bills and Patriots. This is one of the games that makes me the most nervous of the week because it's so hard to take really anything away from the first matchup in the Wind Bowl. They're in New England. The Patriots' offense has not been especially impressive, but the defense, except for last week, has been very, very good. And actually, even last week they were rather good up until Taylor was able to break that big run. And the Bills have been, again, a Jekyll and Hyde team. Josh Allen still did almost take them down for that win right at the end of the previous matchup. So ultimately, I'm going to ride with the Bills in this one. But it's another one that's very hard to read. Two really strong defenses. One offense that is good most of the time, but on its bad days has been rather ugly. No Emmanuel Sanders. No Cole Beasley's unvaccinated ass. And not necessarily getting on anybody that's unvaccinated, by the way. While I think he should be, there are select people that have good reason not to be. I know a couple of those people, so not trying to attack, just his Cole Beasley's stupid ass is anti-vax nature as a whole. If he wasn't such an idiot about it, it would just be a simple get well. And I still hope you get well, Cole, but shut up forever. And now you don't even have a chance to return to your team for the most critical game of the season. A chance to take the division lead back. Just fucking idiot. And this would have been a great spot for him, too. A tremendous spot for Beasley. So it makes it even more frustrating as a fantasy manager. So I think the Bills will take it. But how this plays out again, this is a really tough one to read for me. I think Allen is going to find some success through the air, notable success. Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, Dawson Knox, 2 out of the 3 will have very big days. We'll see if Bill is able to take Diggs totally out of the picture. He's, look good. So it's a tough one, very tough one. And the Patriots, while Mac finally had a bigger passing day this last week, it was against Indianapolis. Again, we just talked about how bad their secondary is. I'm not reading too much into that. A much stiffer test against the Bills, who are also tough against the run, which it will be difficult for New England to establish to be able to open up the pass a bit. Buccaneers and Panthers is going to be very weird as well. The Buccaneers were shut out. Tom Brady was shut out for only the 3rd time in his career. And the Panthers are going to start Cam Newton. But Matt Rule says Sam Darnold will also play at some point. So I don't know what the hell we're really going to see in this game. I think we can feel relatively good about a revenge performance from the Buccaneers. The only thing that causes pause with that is, their offense got friggin' hurt last Sunday. Leonard Fournette, boom, done. Chris Godwin, done. Evans, week to week. And I guess Fournette's not done, but probably out for the rest of the regular season. So, or I believe he is. I believe he was added to IR, so he may come back for the playoffs, but disaster yet again for fantasy managers. So you get to roll out Brashad Perriman, Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson, my personal favorite. Actually, Brashad Perriman, if he comes off the COVID list, would be the guy that I'm really targeting. Obviously, Antonio Brown is going to have been taken unless the rumors of the Bucs maybe cutting him cause somebody in your league to cut him from their fantasy team may be worth taking a look. But most likely, Brown is not going to be available. Perriman is going to be the next best beneficiary, and Gronkowski owners should rejoice. Panthers are an absolute shit show. I just wouldn't touch any of it. Jaguars and Jets pass in terms of actual discussion. Play James Robinson is all I can say in this game. You want James Robinson? I probably want Michael Carter. Yeah, I'd target the running backs here. Get those starting running backs. Lions and Falcons. So whoever thought we would have wanted Jared Goff so bad? Amon-Ra St. Brown, the sun god, has been feasting lately, as gods do. And of course, the quarterback feeding him said feast is now not available. Now, it's not that Jared Goff is well above average or even above replacement, but there is something to be said when you have chemistry with somebody. I don't know that Tim Boyle is going to have that chemistry with Amon Ra. We shall see. Hopefully, Goff can get healthy. But it throws things in doubt there. We also don't know if DeAndre Swift will be returning this week. My guess is probably not. I'm not that lucky. But if he does, you're going to throw him in there. Absolutely you are. Against the Falcons? Hell yeah. But we don't know. Oh, and we have someone in the house, a.k.a. Mr. Dustin. I'm a.k.a., but he is the a.k.a. that I was referring to here. So welcome, Dustin. Welcome to the discussion. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. So back to the Lions and Falcons. And then on the Falcon side, honestly, outside of Patterson and maybe Pitts, just because, again, tight end is so desolate. Gage has been playing really well. Detroit cannot stop the pass at all. But I still don't trust Matt Ryan, even against the Lions. Would definitely stay far away from him. Ugly stuff. But yeah, Gage and Patterson I'm probably into, and Swift and St. Brown I'm into. Don't want the quarterbacks, don't want these defenses. Don't really want to watch this game, to be quite frank. I'll catch at least some of it, but I don't really want to. I really would like Jared Goff to play. I just can't believe I'm saying that. That's what 2021 is doing to us. I'm sitting here hoping, pleading the fantasy gods to just let Jared Goff play. As a matter of fact, I'm in the final four of a league, a super flex league, where Jared Goff is one of my quarterbacks. My quarterbacks are Jared Goff and Zach Wilson, and I'm in the final four. That's 2021, baby. The rest of my team is really good, don't get me wrong, but Zach Wilson, Jared Goff, the 2021 versions of those two guys have led me to a Final Four. Where actually I'll say conventional wisdom would say I'm probably going to get smoked here in this round, but it's 2021. I will say that would be one of the all-time great things. One of the biggest, trophies in my case here, we'll put it that way, would be winning the Superflex League against, and it's a very, very competitive league, one of the tougher leagues that I am in, and win it with Goff and Wilson. And I just lost Godwin, though, so that's brutal, too. And it would be nice to have Swift come back on that team. I've been killed by the injury bug on that team all year long with those patchwork quarterbacks, and still I'm in the Final Four, so let's go, baby. And speaking of tight end, since I brought up Kyle Pitts and the desolation at the position, how wild was last week? Tight end has been brutal most of the year outside of Andrews and Kelsey. And it was the week of the tight end last week. Everybody ate. Like, all the best performers. Nobody did anything, anywhere. And then there were like 5 tight ends that busted out. It was wild as all hell. Oh, and we have Anthony in the house here. What up, what up? Anthony from Get Right Boys with Dustin. Co-hosts, co-friends, co-people. That's what they are. And they're here to, excuse me, they're here to hear me lead in now. Chargers versus the Texans, or Chargers at the Texans. The Texans just lost Brandon Cooks to COVID. Now, the Chargers have lost Austin Eckler. Shit. One of my more heavily drafted players, and obviously on my more successful teams, is now not likely to be available in Week 15, and I am Week 16. Even worse, and I am crestfallen. Austin Eckler, man. Our dude. Every fantasy player's, at least anybody who rosters him, favorite fantasy player Why? Because he loves you back. He actually embraces fantasy. Austin Eckler is the kind of player that we want. He is our friend. He is our guy. He is our motherfucking dude. And now he doesn't get to play in one of the most important weeks, or at least seems unlikely to play in one of the most important weeks of the fantasy season, of his real season, and is going to miss the opportunity to carry many of us to titles, something I know he was really looking forward to. Why? Because he said so himself. Chargers are also missing, notably, Jalen Guyton, Joey Bosa, Corey Linsley, Trent Marshall. Keeman Hull, Tavon Campbell, they are ravaged with COVID. Tough spot, but if there's any week, I guess it would be the week against the Texans. So I really like their chances to still pull us out. I have complete faith in Herbert, Allen, Williams, the bunch. They'll be fine ultimately, but Lord. And what might be one of the biggest matchups in real life this week in the league is the Baltimore Ravens 8-6 at the Bengals, who are 8-6. This AFC North, I'll tell you, this is a bloodbath. Lamar is still recovering from an ankle injury. The Bengals have not looked particularly strong the last couple of weeks. The Ravens have won. I mean, they won with Huntley. They did not win against the Packers, but damn close. I mean, Huntley looked good. Just another situation where an injury to a major player is affecting what may happen, and it's upsetting. Now, it hasn't been Lamar's best season. He was struggling in the few weeks up to his injury, so who knows? Huntley looked very good last week. Whoever starts at quarterback for the Ravens should look pretty good against the Bengals. Their defense has not been particularly strong, especially against the run. So Devontae Freeman, I like to have a good game. Latavius Murray might get in the end zone. Andrews will be Mark Andrews. You play Mark Andrews always. And I'm kind of staying away from the receivers right now just because I have no idea what's even going to be happening with these quarterbacks. And if Lamar plays, he hasn't played in a couple weeks now. And I expect him to run more if that's the case, even coming off the ankle injury. And the Bengals, again, kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team. Jamar Chase has disappeared. T. Higgins was coming on for a bit, but last week was rough. Didn't see much there. Again, it's a guessing game. And you get scared to bench elite players, just like in the upcoming matchup we'll discuss with DK Metcalf and the Seahawks. Chase, it's hard to leave him on your bench, but do you really have faith he's going to perform? But then maybe you do, because the Ravens secondary is banged up too. I think you just got to throw your best talent that you have in your lineups and hope they carry you. It's still kind of, I guess, start your studs. I mean, you look for an edge here, but you're going to drive yourself, paralysis by analysis this week. Bears and Seahawks, not too much time on. Play Justin Fields and Darnell Mooney and David Montgomery, especially David Montgomery this week. On the Seahawks side, nobody. Just lock it if he's back. But otherwise, team stinks. Steelers and Chiefs. Chiefs are ravaged by COVID too. This is going to probably affect more playoff matchups than any, and that's because there is a surprising number of this stack out there, and that is Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Both are on the COVID list. No certainty if they will be back come Sunday afternoon. Maybe, but it's a huge question mark. We're only 3 days away. And if that happens, yikes. And now the Chiefs defense, which was historically bad to begin the year, has been pretty strong of late. So how is that going to hold up there against the Steelers offense, which has been good lately? Not necessarily great, but good. Najee's hit a bit of a wall. I don't really expect that to change the rest of the year. I would not be banking on big points from Harris. And I think that Ben could still get him through the air, with Claypool and Johnson, but again, far from a certainty with the improved play here from the Chiefs. So be careful. And the Chiefs, if they don't have Hill, if they don't have Kelsey, I don't know that necessarily you're running to Hardman or Robinson. I'd probably lean more on those running backs. I would definitely be looking to get CH and Darrell Williams in there. Just be careful. Another important matchup here, although both teams are probably dead at this point in terms of the playoffs, but it's close enough. I mean, it's really bunched. Then it's the Broncos at 7-7 and the Raiders at 7-7. The Broncos are going to be without their starting quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, and Drew Lock will be starting, who I said should have been starting from the beginning. In this limited time that he has come in while Teddy's been hurt, he has looked pretty bad, so it doesn't really support what I was saying earlier. But I do think this ceiling of mediocrity that Teddy gave did prove to be correct. I mean, 500 was the ceiling with Teddy. And I think there was a chance that Locke, if he was the starter this whole time, would have had the opportunity to, or put the team in a better position to slightly exceed that. But it's irrelevant at this point because he does get a shot against the Raiders. We're struggling again in their own right. They did pull off a big win against the Browns on Monday afternoon in a postponed game, so they will be coming with one day less of rest against the Broncos, but they're not dealing with too much in the way of COVID and injury right now. Thankfully, obviously, Waller's missed the last couple of games, and there's the whole Ruggs situation, but I think Waller has a good shot to be back this week. We will see. Keep him out. If he is, expect a big day from Waller. I think Carr will be looking his way early and often, but otherwise continue to roll with Hunter Renfrow. And that's really about it. Same with the Broncos backs. I would probably continue to simply ride Javonte and Melvin. Judy, or actually maybe even Sutton, now that Locke is back at the helm. Sutton might have a chance to do something, but again, not really going to count on it considering he hasn't done anything in 2 months. Wouldn't roll Locke either. Nothing. So forget all that. And then we go into the Sunday night extravaganza where the Cowboys have a great chance to lock up the NFC East against the Washington football team. And that's probably exactly what's going to happen. The Cowboys offense has been mediocre of late, but the defense has been winning games. Just kind of a vanilla, boring attack. Also, a lot of injuries on the offensive side of the ball for the Cowboys, but still just a lot of running a plotting Zeke up the middle, not doing much. Dak really has looked very mediocre of late. Not excited about this offense at this stage. Cooper hasn't done much since he's returned from COVID. So I would expect just kind of a very methodical win from Dallas as they go through this game. And no real big fantasy performances, especially if we're treated to... Wait, I just realized something. We might get the Garrett Gilbert revenge game here. Can you imagine? Garrett Gilbert revenge game in the Big D, in Jerry World. Show up and just put those NFC East celebrations on pause for Dallas if Heineke and Allen cannot make their return and clear COVID protocol. In fact, I'm kind of rooting for that at this point. Garrett Gilbert revenge game. It just sounds so good. Hashtag Garrett Gilbert revenge game. That's what's happening. I take that back. Take that back. Washington is going to win. Antonio Gibson is going to help Garrett Gilbert go on, crush Christmas weekend for Cowboys fans in Dallas, and it is going to be glorious. So you play Antonio Gibson, Garrett Gilbert in DFS, and on your Cowboys, I guess. CeeDee Lamb, I guess. Washington secondary is rather bad, but of course you're going to play CeeDee Lamb, but just not excited about it. Not at all. Nor am I excited about the Monday night game, Dolphins Saints. How many trips to the finals are going to come down to what Taysom Hill does, what Alvin Kamara does, what Myles Gaskin does, God, what Duke Johnson does? Don't play Duke Johnson, by the way. Don't play Myles Gaskin either. Why? New Orleans has the best rushing defense in the league, so don't try to play running backs against them, especially bad ones. I do not care what Duke Johnson did last week. He is not a good running back. Do not chase last week's points. Please, for the love of God. I haven't seen too much in the way of Duke Johnson, but enough that it concerns me that some might be doing that. Do not do that. You hope Waddle is available. You play Waddle, you play Parker. I would probably even be willing to play Tua. Otherwise, on the Saints side of the ball, it's Kamara and Hill, and that's it. This probably won't be all that entertaining of a game either. Probably a bit of a Monday night dud. Good defenses, not the best offenses, not the most entertaining offenses. And that's where we stand. So really what Week 16 is a hope, a prayer, and just hoping that as you crafted your team throughout the season, starting with the draft, continuing with waivers, further establishing through trades, you came into the playoffs with this final product. Now you're hoping, praying, doing everything that you can in terms of staying informed to make the best decision possible to just make it to next week. And I think we don't even want to see our opponents go down. I mean, those in high stakes leagues, okay, you're going to be a little more ruthless. But for the most part, as much as we want to win whatever pot in our money leagues that is up for grabs, a lot of us are doing this in home leagues, family leagues, free leagues. It's something that we're doing for pride, ego, hubris. As the wonderful series, The League, starts out, I believe, very early in the premiere episode there on the pilot. Fantasy football is about proving that you are to your friends that you are better than them, or something along those lines. And it's true. It's just a big look at me contest to a degree. So make your league mates look at you. And win. At least hope you can, because you really don't have any control. Just every time I try to just go down whatever path I can think is, we're entertainment for some deity or something somewhere, because the way this goes down is almost you can't write it. You can't make this shit up. This is the most unbelievable stuff happen. So all I can say is to you, if you're here, you've crafted your team. You're at this point. There's money on the line. There's ego on the line. There's reputation on the line. Just do your best. Just stay informed. That's the number one thing you can do this week. Stay on top of all NFL news. I know it's Christmas. If you have kids as they're playing with their toys and ignoring you at that point in the day, once you've gotten through the morning, just scroll, just check. Don't rely just on player alerts on your fantasy app. Make sure you're actually just kind of perusing to see from beat writers or just even the league page who has been added to injury reports and who has been added to the COVID list. If you do nothing else, pay attention to those two things, because they are changing at a rapid pace. And have alerts on come Saturday and Sunday morning, because anything can happen in those games. And as always, we close with one final plug, and that is for prizepicks.com. Please, if you have not already, it's not too late. You can join at prizepicks.com. Please sign up using code COLLECTIVE, KOLLECTIV. They will make a 100% deposit match of your first deposit of up to $100. So you can get a free $100. Very, very simple. Just use code COLLECTIVE. There's still 3 weeks left here. We've still got the playoff season. There's still a lot of opportunity to go on there and have some fun with NFL prop picks. And the beauty of it is not just NFL. There's NBA, there's MMA, there's boxing, there's soccer, there's golf, there's baseball, there's hockey, there's if there's a sport, there's esports. There's such a variety there. So for whatever your interests are as football season concludes, you'll still have opportunities to play. Myself, I will still continue with NBA. I'm having a lot of fun doing that even during the NFL season, during the week. Not quite as heavy this week since we have NFL games damn near every day, at least so it feels like. But throughout the season, it has been nice to be able to mix that in because we have these few days off in between NFL games. And I have actually learned, and I wish I had known this earlier, I've mentioned you can get 3x, 5x, and 10x returns, depending on whether you're doing 2, 3, or 4 picks as your entry, or even a 5-pick flex play. You can get up to a 15x return on a single entry of just 4 picks if you combine it with a same-game parlay of 2 quarterbacks, one quarterback going under in a stat category, the other quarterback in the same game going over in a stat category in a game. So if you wanted to say, hey, this Monday night game, Tua and the Saints, you wanted to take Tua under on his passing yards and Hill over on his rushing yards, then you combine that with 2 picks from another sport, 2 NBA picks, 2 esports picks, what have you. Boom, 15x. I was able to hit one of those this last Saturday night, the first time that I realized I could put together such a combination, and it was wonderful. Great feeling. So give that a shot. Otherwise, just make sure you're gambling responsibly, but go on and have some fun. PrizePicks.com, code collective, 100% deposit match, free $100. Free $100. Only a few weeks left in NFL. I know you're NFL fans if you're watching this. So make sure you get in here in the last few weeks and have some fun. Go win yourself some money. Maybe it'll help make up some of that money you just had to fork over this entire holiday season and start the new year off in a profitable light. And with that, week 16 is here. The playoff semifinals are here. It is time to get to those finals, baby. It is time to make that championship round. It is time to get to that title game. So make sure you're doing all you can. Make sure you're staying informed and make sure that you win. Nothing less is acceptable. And this meeting of the Fantasy Boardroom is adjourned.